Joining us now is Mike Davis, founder and president of the Article 3 Project, who's been watching all of this closely. Mike, good to have you back, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Robert Hur, he laid out a very damning series of facts about Joe Biden, and yet no charges for the president. What did you think of that?
Well, it's not surprising to me because Robert Hur is part of the James Comey, Chris Wray, Rod Rosenstein, fake Republican D.C. cabal. What I would tell someone is I held up Robert's nomination to be U.S. Attorney in Maryland for several months because I knew he's part of the law, and he really delivered today for Joe Biden. They have clear evidence that Joe Biden violated the Espionage Act by taking these classified records, 5 stashes of stolen classified records from his time as vice president and even as a senator, which you have no way of explaining other than he knew what he was doing. And then he shared these records with his ghostwriter. He lied about it, and then his ghostwriter deleted the recordings where Joe Biden is committing espionage by sharing these classified records with his ghostwriter.
And he did it to enrich himself. That ghostwriter was writing a book in which he was getting an $8 million advance. It seems like open and shut to me.
Yeah, and that's just part of it. Remember, Miranda Devine at the New York Post reported that it looks pretty clear that Hunter Biden also used classified materials in a 23-point memo that Hunter Biden drafted when apparently Hunter Biden had the prostitutes go home and put away the crack pipe and became a geopolitical expert in Ukraine to secure millions of dollars in Burisma funding for the Bidens. So this is part of a pattern by Biden where he is using stolen classified records to enrich himself and his family. That is clearly espionage, and it is inexcusable that Robert Hur is declined to recommend charges here. Remember, this goes to Merrick Garland. Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland is the one who made the decision to prosecute Trump for presidential records Trump is allowed to have in the office of former president under the Presidential Records Act, while declining to prosecute his boss, Biden, for the stolen classified records that Biden used to enrich himself and his family.
Let's address the facts on this because I think it's important for the audience. You've got today the Democrats kept raising the Trump case, the Jack Smith, Merrick Garland classified documents case against Donald Trump, and they say, well, the difference here, Robert Hur even emphasized, the difference here is that Trump was kind of a pain. When he was asked for it, he made it difficult to give these documents back, whereas Joe Biden didn't, so therefore those are the differences. To that you say?
Well, President Trump should have been a pain because he has the absolute statutory right under the Presidential Records Act to have his presidential records. Remember, under the Presidential Records Act, the president decides whether they are presidential records that belong to the government that he can access anytime he wants, or their personal records that belong to him, i.e. the Clinton Socktor case, where Clinton had 79 audio recordings, 8 years of highly classified recordings of his presidency that the Obama judge correctly said were personal records because President Clinton took them when he left office, right? But what they're doing to President Trump here is they are trying to prosecute him for records he's allowed to have, and they're trying to say he was a jerk about it, so they're trying to charge him with obstruction. What about Biden's ghostwriter deleting the evidence of Joe Biden's espionage where he's sharing classified records illegally with his ghostwriter? What about when the Biden Justice Department had a sweetheart deal with Biden's personal attorneys where they did secret searches for several months for these stolen classified records after they're prosecuting President Trump? President Biden's personal attorneys represented they turned over all the records after they turned over 4 stashes, and then Biden and the Justice Department at that time, they appointed Robert Hur, who sent the FBI into Biden's homes and offices, and they found another stash of stolen classified records. How is that not obstruction?
Yeah, exactly. Well, as you talk about, Robert Hur did everything he could to whitewash all of this for Biden, so Biden gets away with it, as opposed to the way they're treating Donald Trump now. But that didn't stop the left from complaining about the Hur report today. Here's Adam Schiff complaining that oh, the things you said in the report are being used by our political opponents.
What you did write was deeply prejudicial to the interests of the president. You say it wasn't political, and yet you must have understood. You must have understood the impact of your words. You must have understood the impact of your decision to go beyond the specifics of a particular document, to go to the very general, to your own personal, prejudicial, subjective opinion of the president, one you knew would be amplified by his political opponent, one you knew that would influence a political campaign. You had to understand that. And you did it anyway. And you did it anyway. And let me just go to some of the differences here between the president's conduct and Mr. Trump's. In the superseding indictment, on page 3, it says that Mr. Trump suggested that his attorney falsely represent to the FBI and grand jury that he did not have documents called for by the grand jury's subpoena. You didn't find anything like that with respect to Mr. Biden, did you?
Congressman, I do not have the Trump indictment in front of me, but I need to address something that you said in your prior question. What you were suggesting is that I needed to provide a different version of my report that would be fit for public release.
Yeah, so he gets into further debate on this. But here you have all these Democrats that are complaining that Robert Hur said that Joe Biden had memory lapses, Mike.
So this is amazing to me. There is clear evidence that Joe Biden committed espionage by willfully retaining these classified documents and willfully sharing these documents with his ghostwriter. They have him on tape saying this. His ghostwriter destroys the tape. That is a clear Espionage Act violation. It's clear obstruction of justice. Biden should have been charged. The only reason he's not charged is because Robert Hur went out of his way to protect Biden by saying, I don't want to charge him because he's a lovable, demented man, essentially, and it would be difficult to prove that he willfully did what he did. That's just complete nonsense. Robert Hur is protecting Biden, and the Democrats should be very happy with Robert Hur that he said what everyone already knows, that President Biden is demented and didn't recommend espionage charges they did with Trump.
There was a big piece in the Washington Post this morning on this same issue, which is that the White House is angry at Merrick Garland for not being political enough, and not literally just removing any reference to Biden's senility from the report, and just saying he's exonerated, he didn't do anything wrong, and on we go. Do you get the sense that this is just meant to give us the appearance that they're being tough on Biden?
They look, remember, it was Joe Biden who went to the Washington Post and complained that his Justice Department and other Democrat prosecutors weren't prosecuting Trump.
Yes.
And then what do you know? Jay Bratt does this raid on Trump for presidential records he's allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act. And Matthew Colangelo gets sent from the number 3 office in the Biden Justice Department to resurrect the zombie case against Trump in New York that's going to trial in 2 weeks. This is all lawfare driven by Biden, and I cannot believe that they're upset with Robert Hur for protecting Biden.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, Mike Davis, thank you very much from the Article 3 Project. I really appreciate your insight into all of this, as always. Thank you, sir.